What is up, my tricksters? It's your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero back again on this awesome Monday. We're going to be showcasing some new cards. I'm sure the title gave that away. But for those of you who are Shadoll fans, do you ever want to build a version of this deck that has more dolls than the Tearalments? Stick around, because have I got the deck profile for you, especially if you don't want to spend a lot of money. That being said, we're going to go ahead and cut to Frank. He's going to go ahead and let you guys know how you can support this channel. And, yeah, take it away, Frank.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to show you how to support this channel, because if you don't do it, I'm going to put a Cyber Dragon in your hardware. And it's going to bite you every time you buy something that isn't from the spring store. You hear me? Now buy a shirt with my face on it. Here's how you're going to do that. You're going to come over here. You see this little black dot? You're going to click on it. And you see this? It's going to bring you to a white page. Okay, there it goes. Then it's going to bring you to a page. You see all this stuff? This one right here is the one you want to buy, because it's got my face on it. You might also be able to support this channel by, going and clicking in the description of any video and buying a sleeve from your playmats. But they don't have to, if they don't have my face on it, I'm gonna be mad about it. Understood? Now I'm gonna excuse me, I'm gonna go glare and bend some more.
That was Frank, everybody. Please buy a t-shirt with his face on it. He keeps staring at me, and it's getting creepy. Sometimes he adds weird sound effects, too. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, guys, now that you know how to support this channel, we're going to do this like we always do this. We're going to show you guys the replay footage so you can see the deck in action and be surprisingly shocked how well this did. And then we'll cut to the deck profile where I will explain everything in detail. All right, let's go check that out. you have it, guys. This is my Tearalments, Shadoll or Shadoll Tearalments, however you want to look at it. Deck profile, as you guys saw, I'm actually putting up quite a bit of fight against even meta decks and even like a real Tearalment deck where they have mostly the Tearalments and only like 2 Shadolls. Well, guess what? This deck is Winda Turbo, baby. And so for Shadoll players, you are not going to have to spend a whole lot to have this. But first, let's go over the Tearalment cards. We got Shirin. That's probably not how you pronounce that. Havness. And we have Merrily. We have basically all the common / super, the cheap stuff from Power of the Elements, basically. The goal here was to spend as little as possible, but still have a deck that could keep up, and I believe we successfully did that, because one of the things I've discovered with the Tearalments, because I kind of went into this blind, not really knowing too much about them, just knowing what I could afford. These guys are basically Lightsworn monsters, only they also do something when they go to the grave. Now, I decided to go ahead and forgo the Tearalments extra deck monsters. They didn't seem all that powerful to me, and they seemed like a lot more efforts than they were worth. Just my opinion. They're very powerful monsters. Don't get it twisted. They do some really cool stuff. But if you're going for mostly Shadolls and using the Tearalments as a way to get things going, you don't really need them. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna do flip the other way, you're gonna go mostly Tearalments with a few dolls. They're vital. But if you're not doing that, I don't think you need those extra deck monsters. So we got Shirin here, which is basically it's a free summon. It's just, oh, you got a monster, cool, ditch it, special summon this card. Oh, and by the way, that send monster isn't a cost, it's just part of the effect. It causes the dolls to go off. So how fun is that, right? Broken card, as long as you have monsters. If you don't have monsters, it's kind of eh. Then we got our Havness here. Havness kinda is kind of like a hand trap almost. It's not quite a hand trap, but it kind of is. We're milling on our opponent's turn, and like I said, if we mill any of our monsters, we're gonna get stuff off of it. The only thing that doesn't do anything in the graveyard is Effect Veiler, but everything else does something in the grave. So hand trap in a way, causing us to get more chump blocks or causing us to get more searches, so we get more cards to use. So things like that, like Super Poly, don't have a cost. So that's awesome. And then we got Miru, which is basically our normal summon. This card is in older versions of the Shadoll deck, you guys would see me play things like Mathematician or Armageddonite to get things going. Well, Miru is basically like a Lightsworn that's not slow, and we get to just do it on the normal summon. So she literally fulfills all the roles that Armageddonite, Raiden, Mathematician all served, while being a dark monster, which is important. If you wanted to, if you felt like you needed more draw power, you could actually play like, damn it, I spell Allure of Darkness. I lost it for a second there. You guys know how it is, because there's so many cards in the game. I'm gonna forget something eventually, especially because one of these days I'm gonna be old. But literally, each of these guys mills 3 cards, and so it serves the better, like, honestly. And then, like, this one's almost a 4, all causing all of the dolls to go off. It's fantastic, giving us cards to, like, that are hand trap-ish, or extenders, or a starter in our case. Like, Miru is a starter in our deck. And then, of course, we mill these guys, and, oh, look, now I get free Winda, because Winda's our primary target. 2 Shadoll Beast, we got to draw cards. Shadoll Dragon, mostly used for popping a back row card, but also could be used as a set card, and then, like, flip and bounce. It can come up, especially when the game is simplified. Squamata is basically a Man-Eater Bug or Foolish Burial for a Shadoll card. Ariel, we have to play Ariel. I know that a lot of players were starting to cut this card, but I think in the mirror match, this card is so vital. Like, because you send this card, you get rid of 3 of their Tearalments monsters, or maybe they're Shadoll monsters, so they can't go into Winda. Fantastic. And then we got Windy, special summons, free monsters, chump blocks that do something, like Squamata to destroy, Dragon to bounce, or searches and draws, like, with Hedgehog and Beast. Or if we have something banished, yeah, you could summon Ariel and try to get something that was banished back. That's always a cool trick. Hedgehog, Mills searches us a zombie, not a zombie, searches us another Shadoll, and then if we flip it, we get to search our spells and traps, which fan-freaking-tastic. Just mwah. Icing on the cake. Then we got Fairy Tale Snow, because any deck that mills needs to have this card, because this card is just a big-time, like, defensive card. Very handy. Yeah, I think if you're playing anything that mills, whether it's Tearalments, Light Sworns, you need to play this card. Effect Veiler, just because we need some level of protection. Normally you're going to want to go first in this deck, but Effect Veiler is kind of useful regardless of whether you're going first or going second deck, so, you know. So we have it in there. Also, it's a light target, like Fairy Tale Snow is for Construct. Magical Eyes Fusion, it's just a fun tech card. You do not have to play this in your version. I just like it, because it's another access to App Cologne, Winda, or Quintet Magician, which I have actually pulled off a few times, which I find very amusing. Shadoll Fusion, you need it, yeah. But hey, fun thought here is you can like get double window on here if you want. That's kind of a neat trick. It may not be something you want to go for, but it's something you could do. Then we got Slash Draw. This one's more of a going second card. You also don't have to play this card if you don't want to. You can throw an Upstart or any other kind of like more applicable draw spell that might be better for you, like Allure of Darkness, like I was saying. I just like this card because it's like one of the cool things that we can do with this is we can like, it has this mill effect where we got to put the cards back in the graveyard, but not necessarily the cards we milled. So it just kind of has a fun shenanigan type thing with that. It's mostly just used as an Upstart Goblin. But also the discarding card, depending on what it is, may not necessarily be a bad thing, because if it's Fairy Tale Snow, for example, it's like, oh, well, that's okay to have there in the grave. And a Shadoll monster won't go off using this one, but that's fine, because you still got to have something to fuse with for your Tearalments in the graveyard. So it's really like you're not giving up anything. It's really like an Upstart with the potential to trigger your fusion plays. Card destruction. This card in this deck is broken. Alright? Like, my god, you're just gonna be fusing and searching and drawing and sending. Oh my god, you're gonna have everything set up you could ever ask for. It is absolutely insane if you happen to draw this card. Foolish Burial, it can get some plays started, help the graveyard starting to get filled up for your, for your future plays, for your Shadolls. Monster Reborn, it's an extension card. I have also used it against Splight because Miru is level 2. So if you happen to draw this, you could technically Splight red and give yourself a free negate. It's just a fun thing you could do. It's not necessarily like this is another card that's not really necessary for this deck. It's come up a few times, but it's not necessary. Call by the Grave, this card's necessary. You gotta have, not necessarily for hand traps, ironically. This is more like for like the mirror match and stuff like that. Like DD Crow would there's definitely room if you want to play like DD Crows in your deck. There's definitely room for that in here. I'm just saying that right now. You could easily take out Slash Draw, Monster Reborn, throw in DD Crow, easily. And call by, it's just necessary, especially like in the mirror match or in certain certain situations where you want to like force out a negate or something like that, or get rid of a power card in the graveyard, like Totally Awesome if you're up against Sprite, excuse me. Anyway, then we got Super Poly. Super Poly is just the bread and butter of any deck that likes to fuse. We literally have every possible like fusion option in here that you would probably need. Mine is Garurura. I have one in order, but it's not for this deck, so but you don't really need it, honestly, especially if you're playing this deck, because Garurura is more like used for like the random stuff, which is fine. With this kind of deck, you can also just play like you could put in the side like the other Shadoll monsters if you wanted to, but that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what you should do on that front. Just whatever you have available. Then we got Original Incarnation. I swear by this card still. It can cause us to flip these monsters on our opponent's turn, as well as kind of a Call of the Haunted-esque card. But most of the time it's used, it goes to the graveyard. I use it to flip something like Squamata on the opponent's turn, before they get their negate out there or something like that, mostly. Or to cause Beast to go ahead and draw me cards faster. It's just kind of depends. Then we got Meta Noise. That's probably yeah. I think that's how you say that. Anyway, this card's like the Book of Moon / Foolish Burial for Tearalments. So if your opponent has a monster that we can Book of Moon, we'll do that. Remember, you have to control one of these guys to get it off. So that's why we're playing the full 9 available we can, and then of course it'll send another one, potentially allow you to fuse. Which, fun fact, you can also use it to fuse away a window that's preventing you from special summoning, and turn it into a Dragostapelia, which is a negate. So how fun is that? You basically just get to turn any window off that you want and turn it into a negate. Or if a window was defeated earlier, oh cool, fuse with the window, it's back in the deck, ready and recharged, ready to go again in the future, and then we have Dragostapelia. So the deck literally just got its own negation cards now. And then we got Shadoll Shadoll Schism, Schism is obviously we all know how Schism works, but the ability to fuse something and get rid of something with the same attribute actually does come up more often than not, especially in this new format from what I've been seeing. So that's kind of interesting. Getting rid of things like my opponent's Dragostapelia, it's coming up. Or some Millenniumize Restrict as well. So there's that. Now we're going to go to the extra deck. Now, mine has room for you to mess around with things and choose to make different moves. There's room in here. Obviously, you don't have to play the Quintet Magician. This is just my little, fun card that I like to do. You do not have to do that card if you do not want to. He's just in here with a Tecton Magicalized Fusion. That's all he serves. He just happens to be, blow everything up, a big spellcaster. I like it. I've actually been able to OTK with this in the past because I happen to draw this. And by the way, fun fact, because you go through the deck so fast, you're actually likely to see it. How funny is that? That's why the only thing I hate is I wish these guys were spellcasters, but you can't have everything. You can't have everything. Construct, mill the deck out. You actually probably could get away with just playing one, honestly. I never really play more than one construct. It's all about Apkalone and Window with this deck. So there's actually room here to take out, literally, you could just take a construct out and throw something that's a little more viable for you, for your plays, or whatever, for what you have available in your collection. Because if you haven't gathered by now, I do primarily build decks for budget players. Then we got the Dragostapelia. This card comes out common now, so it's also a Starting Venom, which is a super poly target. Dragostapelia is just our best badass negate monster. It's just funny, it's especially the Tearalments allow us to fuse in the graveyard, giving us back windows, getting this guy out, giving us a negate, recurring stuff to our deck so we don't deck out. It's fantastic. I love it. And it's cheap. Apkalone. Throw this guy out there. He's a negate for Floodgates, as well as a I Can't Die in Battle type of card, as well as a floater. So if the opponent does get rid of it, they're just allowing us to float into cards and cause more effects to go off. Window. If you special summon, this is the guy. This card just says no. Excuse me. It just says no. It's no. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to spam the board? No. And the fun part is, with the right setup, we could do it on the opponent's turn. And not even with Shadoll Schism anymore. It's not even just Schism. We can do it with Sewer Volley. We can do it with Hefness here. It's insane. We can do it with the Meta Noise card here. Could cause it. It's insane. It's hilarious. We have so many ways to make wind on the opponent's turn. We also can make Mud Dragon of the Swamp on the opponent's turn, which doesn't really come up a whole lot. I'm not gonna lie to you. However, being that this card is hey, we can summon this card. It's hey, I can't be targeted, and then we can change attributes to protect monsters, so they also can't be targeted. With certain matchups, that does come up. Not always, but it does come up. Then we got our Nightmare Phoenix, back row hate. Wee Witch's Apprentice is just kind of in here to give these guys a boost. Like I said, there's a lot of room in here. Literally, you could literally from Gravity Controller this way, you could really take it out and optimize it even more so. But these guys, I would leave in. But for example, if you have things like Garurara, that might be a good idea to have in here. If you have better Link monsters to play available for the deck, you might want to do that. More Nightmare stuff, or the Charmers, or You know, there's just a number of things you can do. Also, the really cool thing is the Tearalments are very different than other fusion decks, like the branded engine, where they don't trap you into fusion. So that's kind of a very unique situation to be in, because like I said, they don't trap you. So it's very interesting. I'm very fascinated by that. Like, it's just, oh cool, I can actually play Link monsters again. So like I said, this is just a very like starting rough draft of this. But like honestly, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of room to play with here. Now, the sideboard, there's really only like a handful of things that I think are important. The rest is going to be up to you. I would probably keep the lava golems. It might seem kind of crazy, but as boards are getting crazier and crazier, lava golem might be necessary to help you get your plays going. And this deck is not as normal summon reliant as its predecessors would have been, thanks to cards like Havness here. So we are definitely not as limited as we used to be. So we can use lava golem. The other thing is that because obviously the Fluanderies players are still the pains in the asses they've always been, and Konami hasn't put two brain cells together to go, oh, yeah, we probably should do something about that deck. You're going to want your Zombie World and your Banshee somewhere in that sideboard. That's about it. The rest of it, whatever you think is best, whatever works best for you. Secret Village of the Spellcasters, DD Crows, if you want to main deck them, there's room for that too. Sideboarding, Lancias, Pancratops, there's a tons of cards. Whatever you have available in your sideboard. If you have all the good stuff, good for you. If you don't have access to that, there's plenty of room to like play different things and give yourself different kinds of advantages. So that being said, I think this deck's really good. It's really fantastic. Like I said, there's a lot of room to play around, make it more competitively viable for you as a player. If you're at home, but this is what I have here. It actually works. I'm actually really impressed by it. That I can just use the Tearalments as a way to boost the Shadolls instead of the other way around, which is what a lot of players have been doing. It's just like, oh, cool, because I like the Shadolls more than I like the Tearalments, honestly. And the Tearalments also have this little like fun anecdote about them is they're kind of like dark versions of Lightsworn monsters that actually do something when they get milled, which I find absolutely fascinating. It's like, oh, it's like playing Lightsworn, except it's not slow. I love that. I love that. Because Lightsworn was one of my favorite archetypes back in the day. Like, I used to play Dragon Ruler Sworn, and it was like my favorite deck forever. And then Konami had to go and butcher it, but it was literally my favorite deck. And now, it's like, this deck has that very same vibe. With this, just for my own little fun sake, is kind of like it is a Judgment Dragon, essentially. So it's, it's got its own fun little vibe to it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. I hope that this is helpful for my fellow Shadoll players out there who are just looking to build, like, a competent Shadoll Tearalments deck without breaking the bank. I think I've got a really good start for you to work with right here. And you can take it and bend it with your own collection with what you have available. So anyway, guys, if this was helpful to you, make sure you hit me with one of these. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.